Hello and welcome to the Next Level Show. My name is Cledra Gross, your host, and I am so excited to talk to you today because it's going to be about the foundational work that I love. I absolutely love it. And I've crossed the 10,000 hour plus mark of coaching. But why this is relevant for you. What if I told you that it's not so much the circumstances or the situations that you're going through, but it's more your thoughts? Now, stay with me for a minute because if you're like me, when I first heard that, I mentally have this thing where I throat punch people where I'm like, you know what? That sounds way too simple, and you have no idea what I'm going through. So if that's what you're thinking, just pump the brakes. I'm going to make it plain for you. So let me just say this as well. If you are pregnant, currently pregnant, or trying to get pregnant, this may not be the video for you. I want to give a trigger warning because I'm going to be talking about some pretty heavy stuff around pregnancy in this video. So let me set this up for you. So I want you to imagine building your dream home with what you believe is your dream husband, and it's in a cul-de-sac. That was me almost 20 years ago. And I wanted a home in a cul-de-sac because I imagined myself being the type of mom where all of the kids would come to my house. You know, those mothers where everyone goes to their house. I wanted to be that kind of mom. Now, translation, because I'm controlling. And I thought that this is the way that I could watch my children and things could go the way I wanted them to go. That was the real reason. All right. So, but around this time, I discovered, or I'm informed by my OB, that 37 is advanced maternal age. I had no idea. I had no idea. I'm just living my life. I didn't get married the first time until I was 31. And so, by the time that we are in this home that I absolutely love, and I'm, a planner, I'm type A, I have already like strategically planned out my children and the time that I'm going to take off. And it isn't happening. It meaning me getting pregnant. And so I remember going through so many IUIs and to the point where I was just like my arms were like blue from getting so much blood drawn. By the time I went from IUI to IVF, and then the IVF didn't work, and I'll never forget um, getting ready for the second cycle of in vitro. Stay with me. I promise you this story is going somewhere, and it relates to what I said at the top of this introduction to this episode. And I remember, I'll never forget, I remember the nurse calling me. I had just gone in that morning for blood, and she called me, and as always, my heart, if you've ever been through this, you're like, okay, what are they gonna say? And she was like, you can't do in vitro. And I'm like, why not? And she was like, well, because you're pregnant already. And I remember screaming. I remember screaming because after going through so much and being like black and blue, what I had wanted so much happened. And I remember when I would go for my sonogram, I called it my melody, my baby's heartbeat, because I had been pregnant twice before, but I'd never made it to the point of the heartbeat and knowing the sex of my baby. And so I would go for the sonograms, and I would hear that beat and hear that beat. And I would ask them, could I just listen to that for a little while? And they were so kind. They would allow me to do that. And so the day before, the day after Mother's Day, 2007, I went in for my last sonogram, and I'm so excited, and I'm waiting for the melody. I'm waiting for the melody, and it was silent. It was silent. She's like going all over, my lower abdomen, and it's silent. And she takes the whatever the thingy is that she's rubbing, and she holds my hand, and she said, Cledra, his heart has stopped. And in that moment, everything unraveled for me. My faith. I grew up Christian. I grew up believing that if you work hard and you did right, that, things would turn out right for you. I grew up thinking that, things like this didn't happen if you plan things really well. And so after that point, let me just fast forward. It was, gosh, I'm forgetting now, but a few months later, let's just say a few months later, they share with me that, you know what, Clesia, the good thing is your chances of getting pregnant again now that you've made it this far in a pregnancy are pretty high. And so fast forward to the point of trying to try again, and my then husband sits me down to tell me that he's been seeing someone else. And that someone else at that point was in front of our house, our dream home, keep in mind, all right? And so now I have the unraveling of my pregnancy, I have the unraveling of my marriage, and I go to work that next week, and they say that my job is going to be dissolved, and I have the opportunity to move to Philadelphia or to Atlanta. At the time, I lived in Charlotte. So I just want to summarize this for you to say that in a few months, I lost a pregnancy, having a memorial service for a baby. I lost my marriage. Um, I lost my job, and I needed to sell this dream home. So I wanted to give this backdrop and to share the details of why I am so passionate about what I do and why no one can convince me that understanding how your thoughts impact your emotional experience of anything that this world can deal you with to you is everything. So I, at that time, was a pharmaceutical sales rep, and I have been in the pharmaceutical industry over 20 years. I started as a chemical engineer. I was promoted to a pharmaceutical sales rep. Um, anyway, I'm only sharing that to say I knew a lot of physicians. I still know a lot of physicians. And at that time, this is in the 90s. And so physicians had more time and they took more time with pharmaceutical reps. And so I was well connected with physicians to get help, going through and navigating the loss of my pregnancy and the emotional support. And so one of my good friends, she sent me a physician. She sent me to a support group for women who had lost their babies. And I walked in and I just remember looking at the eyes of these women. And I don't know if you've ever looked at people where you're like, they're no longer there. And because I've been in the pharmaceutical industry and had been in the therapeutic area of psychiatry for a very long time, I'm like, okay, these women are heavily medicated. And I just remember saying, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. And not because I'm against medication. I don't want you to interpret this wrong. But as they were sharing, there were women who were like, yeah, it's been 8 years or it's been 15 years and they were retelling the story in a way that I refused. I refused. Hearing another heartbeat in my body continues to be one of the best days of my life. And I didn't know how at that time, but I was going to figure out how to tell the story of this tragic ending in a way that wouldn't just be painful, it would be purposeful. And the way I ultimately figured that out is through life coaching and being introduced to cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy is based in the fact that our thoughts impact our emotional experience. Now, because I am Christian, I also the gap in this model for me was that there wasn't any consideration for our thoughts and the spiritual implication or the spiritual just the spiritual impact, because one thing that I foundationally believe is that God does not cause everything. However, he can make it all work together for the ultimate good. And that's actually taken from a scripture that I like to model for my life, which is Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. I was born on 8:28. So it means a lot to me. And so insert the invention of what I call the SOGA Thought Tree, Spirit of God Applied, SOGA like yoga, Spirit of God Applied Thought Tree. Now, this is my signature method, and I want to share it with you because it is what I used to navigate the complete unraveling of my life to create the results that I currently have. I had doubled in size. I'd gone from like a size 10 to a 22 while I was pregnant, and that was about 70 pounds. Obviously, I was devastated from being betrayed by my husband. Obviously, I was devastated having to relocate and sell what I thought would be the home that we raise our children in. A lot of devastation, right? And I had bills. I had bills. And I was an executive at my job. And so what was I going to do? Just stay at home and take time off to be in this giant house by myself. No. So what I did is I immersed myself in recovering, and it was like a full-time job. And once I went through, I had a therapist, I had a coach, I had my psychiatrist, I had what else did I had? I had a trainer because I was working to get the weight off. And once I got through all of that, I lost 70 pounds. I wrote my first book called Rewrite Your Story. I started my career as a life coach on the side while I was working full time. I moved to Atlanta. I did all of these things. And I realized as I wanted to help other women, I'm like, there's no way you could do this unless you had all of the available time that I have, which most people don't. And so, fast forward, that's why I have Next Level Life and Business. I coach both life and business because we as women are always doing both. Whether you have a business of your own or your career, you have a business and you have a life, and they go together because you are the person who's operating all of it. So foundationally, the principle, the coaching principle that I want to introduce in this video is the SOGA Thought Tree, Spirit of God applied. And it's reflected by this apple tree. There are only 5 things that could ever happen to us in life: a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, a result. All right. So, how does this relate to this thought tree? The circumstance I want you to think of as the soil. We are always planted, depending on the season we're in different circumstances. For me, in that season, almost 20 years ago, I was planted in the circumstance of someone betraying me, my husband betraying me. I was planted in a circumstance of a tragic end to a pregnancy. I was planted in the circumstance of having to sell my dream home. I was planted in the circumstance of losing the job and having to start over in a whole new state and start over in so many different ways. These are circumstances. Now, the power in the Soga Thought Tree is that while I was planted in those circumstances, what's above the soil is the thought, our thoughts. Now, they're default thoughts. We all have a default network in our brain. And then there are what I call the designer thoughts, the thoughts that we can design on purpose. And I got really intentional about designing my thoughts about being planted in this set of circumstances. And my thought would be one of my thoughts was that this is going to work together for something amazing. And so our thoughts then drive our feelings, and the feelings are reflected by the trunk of the tree, trunk of your body. All right. So when I started focusing on the fact that this is going to work in a way towards something amazing, then I felt determined. I felt encouraged. I felt inspired. So those feelings then lead to the branches, which are the actions for the thought tree. And those actions led to me joining a run group. I used to run with a group called Black Girls Run at 5 a.m. and I lost those 70 pounds. I did it publicly on Facebook, and I built my business by living my redesigned life out loud. Those actions that the branches represent the actions. What we habitually do or don't do then lead to the fruit in our lives. And this is where it's Bible based for me that we are known by our fruit. And that fruit that I created by choosing and designing my thought that it is working together for my good. The 70 pounds lost, the writing my first book, the giving myself a promotion by starting a side business. It was on the side at that time, and now I'm full time by finding the love of my life. It is because of this foundational principle that I'm teaching you, the Soga Thought Tree. And so why am I sharing this with you? As I continue to build this show out, I want you to be able to come back to this foundational video. I'm going to pin this video to so that you know why I'm doing this. I pray that you can feel my heart. I know what it's like when you just get sideswiped by life, like T-boned by life emotionally, where it's something that you had no idea that your life would include that much pain and heartache. And I want you to have hope that there are tools that you can learn. And as you learn those tools, you will acquire a skill set. And that skill set will be what you implement to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And I can promise you that you can put any result that you are created to have in life on this thought tree model and do the work to create it. And so as we continue to go through this show, I knew that I needed to do a foundational video so that I could set this whole show up so that you could understand and you could really hear me. All of the videos will not be this long, but foundationally, the SOGA Thought Tree is what I will be talking about because you will hear me ask you frequently, what are you thinking? Or I may ask, what were you feeling that led to that? Because everything that you're creating that you don't like right now, we can unravel it. This is where my chemical engineering mind comes in. I think of things in terms of a process. Chemical engineers, the whole thing, the premise is to optimize a process. And now, instead of doing that with chemicals and pharmaceuticals, I do that with your mind. All right. I know that was a lot. I'm excited. I'm excited because as I approach 55 in just 21 days at the time of this video, I just look back and I'm just so thankful. I mean, I don't want to get emotional, but I'm so thankful for these tools because without these tools, I think I would be like some of those women still coming and retelling the story in a way that's disempowering. I learned how to tell the story of everything that happened to me in a way that made me feel empowered. And I used that empowerment to go on and build what I really wanted. And now I know that I'm called to help you do the same. So that is what I wanted to share in this episode of the Next Level Show. And I'm going to be sharing about how you can be finally free from anything that you've experienced. It's going to be a 3-day challenge that's coming up. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you get notifications when I when I have a new video. And listen, there's reason to have hope. There's reason to have hope. All right. That's what I have for you in this episode. I'll see you soon.